Okay, I would like to welcome everybody to the June 4th, 2024 City of Angels Camp City Council meeting. Roll call, please, Rose.
Mayor Herndon.
Present.
Vice Mayor Moncada.
Present.
Councilmember Brolio.
Present.
Councilmember Shemente.
Present.
Councilmember Sherrado.
Present.
Staff is present.
Thank you. Pledge of allegiance, please.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 6 is to report out of closed session, but we will be going back into closed session after tonight's meeting. So we're going to move on to item 7, which is a proclamation that we're also going to postpone to the end of the meeting. So taking us to item 8, approval of the agenda as posted or amended. Does anybody have any reason to amend the agenda as posted? Do you have anyone here that would like to speak during public comment? Seeing nobody here, do we have anyone with us online, Rose?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, we'll move on past public comment to our consent agenda. We have some items on consent. Anybody have any reason to pull either of those items? Any member of the public want to pull either item on consent? Okay, bring it back to council. I'd be looking for a motion on our consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
And a second.
Shemente.
Aye.
Brolio.
Aye.
Moncada.
Aye.
Herndon.
Aye.
Sherrado.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Regular agenda, item 8. This is to review 3 applications and appoint 2 new planning commissioners. Rose.
So recently, the planning commissioners have 3. And they are here today.
Okay.
Could the gentleman at least stand and just introduce themselves?
Sure.
So, Mike.
I'm sorry.
So what I'm going to do is, as we've done consistently with all of our other appointments, we've had the chance to read over everybody's application, but we'll have all 3 of the individuals leave the room, and then we can have them each come in and introduce themselves and have a moment, and then we'll handle it that way, and then we will move forward on potentially a motion and a vote for appointment. So a lot like what Mike just said, if the 3 applicants can stand, and we'll have you, Rose will take you.
Yeah. We're going to come
right
out here
outside.
to the. I'm going to leave one, right?
Yep.
Yep.
You can
Okay, go
tag
ahead.
team on.
We're going to have you
All
stand
right,
back.
we'll have you stay behind.
Go back over to the podium.
Sorry, it's like duck, duck, goose.
Right?
I'll figure it out.
So this will be your opportunity to just introduce yourself. We've seen your application, but you can say whatever it is that you need to say on your behalf.
Hi, I'm Daniel Whitford. Spent most of my life in Angels Camp. Was gone for a while and been back for the last 5 years. I have a lot of experience in town infrastructure and public works projects. I'm currently a contractor, and I like this town and I'd like to be involved in making it better. Okay.
Are we able to ask questions?
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask Daniel?
I have a question.
Really?
So in the question from a city planning aspect, what 3 areas does the city need to improve on the most? You wrote the annex needs to be bypassed. Can you go into more information?
Well, I mean, it's not really like wide enough to be, you know, a highway thoroughfare, maybe, you know, back in the 60s, but it's kind of a mess. I've heard that there's plans to bypass it, but, you know, that'd be pretty nice.
Anybody else?
It's kind of improvised.
Yeah.
Daniel,
You applied last time.
I did.
Okay, I just was trying to put a face with a name and remember.
Yeah.
Remember what I had for breakfast? Alvin?
Oh, no, the annex, I agree wholeheartedly with you, and there was the emergency evacuation plan, and, well, it was a whole big thing.
Yeah.
And that was part of it, because the fairgrounds is the evacuation center, so, yeah,
I've worked as a summer hire for Public Works like 20 years ago, and I remember just digging up sewer lines and finding, like, there's stories about, like, the actual water lines are old air compressed lines from mines, and, you know, you're just like, whoa.
I wanted to ask, I know that you applied last time, and I may have asked you this before, but in all fairness,
I
I'm
probably
asking
won't remember.
everyone the same thing, and that is why do you feel the need or the desire to get involved now?
I'm just curious as to what's going on in my town, and, you know, you get to a certain age and you choose where you live, and you kind of want to, you know, make your stand and stick there, and I kind of like to be involved and know what's going on.
Thank you.
Daniel, you made a statement about too many vacant business fronts. Are you aware that we've had a number of new businesses open up downtown and that the city council is moving forward?
Actually, I've seen an improvement in just business occupancy, and, you know, you drive through, because I usually get off work or, you know, leave work around 5 or 6, and there's way more traffic through there. Maybe, you know, right after COVID, it was pretty desolate, and so it is improving. I'm excited about the hotel getting redone by where the old car dealership was.
And then I have a question, I'll ask this to all of the applicants tonight. How many meetings, be it city council or planning commission meetings, have you attended recently, whether that's virtual or watched on TV or in person?
It's been one so far.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your
We're gonna
interest
have,
as
go
well.
back this way. And have a seat. Christopher? Go ahead and stand at the podium.
I go by my middle name, Clavey.
Clavey,
Christopher is my given first name.
that's when you're in trouble, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So Clavey, if you'd like to just introduce yourself and say whatever it is that you want to say, we do have your application in front of us, so we've had a chance to read what you've given us, but here's your opportunity to talk to us.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's my honor to be here. My name's Christopher Clavey Went. My mom raised me to be a preacher. My father raised me to be an outfitter. Ended up being an outfitter with my brother out at Oars. And as a 48-year-old, I'd like to get involved. As a local resident, I'd like to get involved with the city. And politics fascinates me.
Question?
Well, the question that I had, which you basically answered, is why do you feel the need or desire to get involved now?
Right. I'm willing to wait for 3 years or another year. More openings come up. I'm in no rush. But my brother, Tyler, has got Oars firmly in his control. I'm just a veep. I'm one of his 2 veeps. So I've got some extra time that I'd like to direct towards an exciting future in Angels Camp, I think. It feels like the city's on the verge of some really cool things. I'd like to be a part of that.
Go ahead, questions? I have a question. Go ahead.
So you mentioned about the roads, streets, sidewalks, bike lanes and things. So are you aware of some of the upcoming projects that are addressing some of that? Okay.
Yeah, very exciting, impressive. Seemingly a bunch of grants and things that have come from the federal government, the state government, the county all at once, seemingly. Or, I don't know, the state with Utica Park, I guess. It's exciting. Did I answer your question?
I have a question that I'm asking to all candidates. How many meetings, be it city council or planning, have you attended and or watched or viewed online in the recent times?
I have to admit, not many. I did attend last week's or 2 weeks ago's city council meeting. You guys are 2 weeks ago on Zoom. So I listened in, and that's really, I'm afraid that might be my only meeting that I've attended.
So what was your takeaway after listening to the meeting?
That there's a lot of cool things going on. So also seems to be some litigation, maybe, but as a whitewater rafting outfitter, I've never heard of litigation. I have no experience with that type of stuff. But, sorry, bad joke. So my takeaway is that you guys are doing, you all, ladies and gentlemen, are doing a good job of nudging us into the future as a city.
Thank you. Alvin, do you have anything?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Clayton.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming this way.
Thanks for putting up with me.
I went to school without.
Oh, did
Yes,
you?
you did. And both of him and
Was he
Ted.
Clayton back then, too?
Yeah, that's all I ever know. I didn't know his name was.
Go ahead and stand at the podium.
I don't know.
So you sorry, I'm writing and reading. John, we have your application, we know a little bit about you, but this is your chance to introduce yourself and say anything that you might want to say to us.
Okay, I'm John Broder. I've been on the Planning Commission since 2011. I've seen a lot of changes in the city, most of them for the better. The planning department itself, I think, has improved immensely. I've been through 3 planning directors, and we've got the best one of the bunch right now. And that's about all I have to say, unless you have questions. Any questions, I'll answer,
Okay,
if I may.
here you go, guys. Who's ready?
So I asked the others why they wanted to get involved. At this time, my question for you is, why do you want to continue on after 13 years?
You mean after jumping out of the frying pan into the fire, why do I want to stay there?
Yes.
I'd rather enjoy it. I think I'm giving something to the city, and I'm getting something in return and learning about the city. This is not my native city. I came up here in 2005, so I'm still considered by some as a flatlander. I'm trying to erase some of that.
Alan and Mike? Caroline, go ahead.
Am I on?
You're
Am I on?
off
Okay.
now.
Can you just tell us what one of the things that you're most proud of with working on the planning commission so far?
Promise in the planning commission. No, I think something I did before the planning commission that got me involved in the city was the stink on Finnegan Lane. I was known as Mr. Stinky for quite a while. I had a sewer problem there with the inverted siphon, and it had been, a lot of people had been complaining for 20 years before I even got here. And I think with my persistence, I think that problem finally got fixed. And I'm proud of that. I'm also enjoying that because now I can walk up and down the street and not have to hold my nose. That's what got me involved in politics. If you want to call this politics, I was never interested in any of that stuff before, but that was something that got me involved. I went to the infrastructure committee and then on to the planning commission.
So John, since you are I'm assuming the senior member of the commission, how do you view your role with the other commissioners and the new commissioners that we're about to appoint?
I view my role as one of them. I am not anybody that's special on the commission. I've got a name as the chairman, and all that involves is signing my name to the ordinances we pass. But as far as being anything special during the meeting, I don't consider myself any distance above any of the other commissioners, and very rarely have I had to use that power, and that just once that I can remember where conversation got a little out of hand and we had to stop it and go back to Robert's Rules of Order. But other than that, I'm just one of the guys. I have the chairman's name, but name only really.
Thank you.
So I had a question that you kind of have an unfair advantage to, because my question to the other applicants was, how many meetings have you attended in the recent time? And I think I know the answer to that for you, that you've been quite involved. I think I do want to ask you a little bit of a different question. You mentioned that one of the things that we could improve on, or could be improved on, would be getting the public to attend. Do you have any ideas or strategies on how we could accomplish that?
That's completely out of my wheelhouse, as they say nowadays. I'm not a public relations type person, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that are more adept at that than I am, but I have seen many instances where the public does not attend planning commission meeting, and we've had vacancies that stood for a long time, and that will kind of bother me for some reason, and that's why I say that the public should get more involved, and instead of just being out there and complaining about what happens when they have no hand in what happens. And I don't think they realize how things work. And if they attended the meetings, which I understand is can be a burden on some people, they just don't have time to do that. But if they would attend a meeting, they could find out how things work and maybe have a hand in fixing them.
Thank you, John. Any questions, Alvin? All right, thank you so much.
We're going to have you step back.
Yeah.
Okay, John, I'm going to have you go back and have a seat. I'll come get you three when I'm ready. Okay?
Okay, so
Thank you.
What we'll do now is I will open this up to any discussion here at council, then we'll go out to public comment and then bring it back and looking for some motions. So does anybody have any discussion or comments to make? Sounds strange. No. Okay, so any public comment? We have an opportunity here to appoint 2 applicants. We have 3, I've seen. So does anybody have any comments or endorsements? We have Amy Augustine that would like to say something.
Mayor, council members, I just have to say John was being modest. He really does lead the commission as the chair and keeps everybody in order, and he always has fantastic insights, and we would be very much lost without him. So.
Okay, so that's one of them.
Thank you. Any other public comments on our applicants? Anybody online, Rose?
No.
Okay. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council.
I just have a comment.
Okay.
I'm just very happy that we had 3 applications.
I do
for this,
too,
I mean,
yeah.
that's awesome, because we have not had that in times in the past. So thanks to staff or whoever was pushing that on social
Yeah.
media all over the place. I don't know how it got out 100%, but thank you.
It's attractive that they only have 1 meeting on that.
I know.
And the other thing is I asked a question about attendance. I have been, it's actually been kind of earth-shattering for me. A lot of people have been telling me that they watched the videos, they watched the TV version of these meetings. So they aren't in attendance, they aren't even zooming in anymore, but they seem to kind of be keeping up on what's going on by watching the CCTV version. Yeah, on YouTube or wherever it's posted. So little kudos to Sam there for our recordings. But anyways, go ahead, Alvin.
Oh, I think you got the old watchdog there, you know, in Broder. I think you got Clavey that seems to be pretty excited about it, and I think Daniel has some experience in water and different things. So I think you have 3 pretty amazing candidates. So that's all.
Yeah.
I like that Dan came back after we asked him to come back.
Yep.
That's really a
Oh, he
standard.
did.
Yes.
We said, we didn't choose him at that time, but please apply when the position comes open again, and he did.
and that speaks volumes to me.
It does.
And I like Clavey, and I like what Clavey's enthusiasm, but as he said, he is happy to wait 2 to 3 years if he needs to. He doesn't need to get on today. So my recommendation would be to move forward with Dan and with John.
So you're making a motion on
You
that?
make
I will make the motion
Okay.
to
A motion with
appoint,
two
to
applicants?
appoint John Broder and Daniel Whitford.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second.
Shemente,
Aye.
Barolio,
Aye.
Moncada, Herndon,
Aye.
Sharada.
Aye. So yeah, if you want to get them and bring them out, and then,
Should probably offer that same to the
I know you're gonna be
Yeah.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Sure.
okay, so we couldn't have all three of you, and we tried. We tried. And we once again want to thank all three of you for extending your interest in your applications. We've decided to move forward with John Broder as well as Daniel Whitford. And Clavey, we want to invite you to keep coming. We want to invite you to show your interest. If you have that little bit of time that you can give us, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of turnover. And if you could apply again. We really want to thank you. And
Thank you.
congratulations to the other two individuals. We will use you bravely.
And thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go
Thank you,
ahead,
guys.
Alvin.
Daniel, since you've applied last time and we asked you to wait and come back and you did, so kudos to that and I appreciate it. And Clavey, I've known you my entire life. You're a stand-up individual and I appreciate you coming out. Check into like ACBA, Angels Camp Business Association. The museum is really doing wonderful things right now too. So there's a bunch of organizations. Go check out and get involved too. There's help needed everywhere. So thank you. I
We
appreciate
also
it.
have 3 seats on city council. coming
Yeah,
up.
if you really want to do it for the weekend, you go to city council.
All right, I'll try it.
Yes.
Thank you all three.
Thank you guys. Thanks so much.
And just so you know that their oath will be given at the planning commission meeting.
Right, at the next meeting.
Yes.
Correct.
And you don't need to feel, like you have to stay for the rest of
Yes.
this meeting either.
Correct.
Oh,
You can go
right.
if you like.
Yes,
You're
If
nice
you want to
loser.
head out, you're
Yes.
more than welcome.
You're more than welcome.
We give you permission.
Yeah.
You can sneak out the back door too. So next is item B, and we do have a presentation from Cal Waste. So we'll welcome you up to the podium.
It's on.
Hi, my name's Casey Beccarosa. I'm the Director of Operations and one of the owners of Cal Waste. We have a brief presentation tonight. It's kind of based around our rate adjustment for 2024. So to start off, back on March 29th, we sent a letter into the city, Administrator Callan, requesting our 2024 rate adjustment. As per our contract that we signed back in 2018. Go to the next slide. This is the basic residential service that we provide here in the city of Angels Camp. It's a 35-gallon trash cart, a 95-gallon blue recycle cart, and then we have a 65-gallon green waste or organics cart. So customers that pay for our service get all 3 of these carts. Your trash is serviced every week, your recycle is serviced every other week, along with your green waste service that other week. Go to the next slide. So just a recap of what we did here in Angels in 2023. This is a graph and some data that just shows the recycled tons collected, the green waste tons, and the trash tons collected. As you can see, recycled tons from 2022 to 2023, we went from 390 tons all the way up to 807 tons. And if you look all the way over on the trash side of the world, very right, you can see that trash volume went down and that recycle volume went up. So that's something we really like to see in all the communities that we service. So that's a pretty big jump for Angels Camp here with about a 400 ton swing. Also, last year we hit about 1,100 home services, so residential home services within the city of Angels Camp. So that's a pretty big number from where we started back in 2013 when we took over the contract. Additionally, before we get to that part, additionally we in 2023, the city of Angels Camp received $99,000 from Cal Waste, and that being in $65,000 of that, or almost $66,000 of that being in franchise fees, and about $33,500 in recycle fees. So we give you guys that recycle credit back from what we collect here in the city. So you guys actually get 90% of that back. We keep 10 for processing. So the city of Angels, from the contract and our agreement that we have, you guys get some money back in the community from our services that we provide. Go to that next slide there. So how we calculate how we request how our rate adjustment is calculated is based on a CPI index, which is the Water, Sewer, and Trash Index, which is published on government BLS website. This year with the calculation's done from December to December. That calculation came out to 5.44% for based on 2023 going into 2024. So that would be the rate increase that we would be that we are requesting for 2024, and that would go into effect July 1.
And that CPI is specific to just waste. That is
so
not like the other CPIs that are talked about for cost of living and things like that.
There's hundreds of CPI indexes out there, and in our contract and a lot of other contracts we have, we base it off of this water, sewer, trash CPI, and then there's a series ID number there too that you guys can reference if you feel.
So Casey, does it compare like sizes, or is it just an average, or how does that
So we have
calculate?
a base rate that we have in our contract with you guys, but that rate right there is just based off of other, water, sewer, trash collection services in U.S. cities, average all urban customers. It's pretty broad CPI.
Okay.
Yeah. And then what that rate increase would look like, we have here, so our basic service here in Angels Camp is a 35-gallon trash cart. And if you choose to go up in size in trash carts, your price goes up. You still have the same other two carts, but the price is really based off of, the more you throw away, the more you pay, that kind of thing. So for the 35-gallon rate, we'd see $1.42 per month increase. For the 65-gallon cart, it would be a $3.08 increase per month. And then if you have one of the big 95-gallon trash carts, it would be a $5.12 increase per month. And keeping in mind that increase does affect what the city, the recycle reimbursement and the franchise fees are in that too. So the city would grow with that as well. Additionally, there's always a worry of the senior community, especially in Calaveras County and in City of Angels. We do have a program set up with you guys. It's called a CARE program. It's kind of through PG&E. Currently, we have 97 customers that are in that program. The city really kind of helps administer it. We help too. With that, customers can get up to a 12.5% decrease in their bill if they qualify through that PG&E CARE Act, which translate over to our program that's kind of attached to that, and they just get a discounted rate when they're applying to that. So.
And does that come in their PG&E bill, or how do our folks learn about that?
So I think that they can get a lot of that through PG&E.
Okay.
And we just kind of tag-tail on the back end of that. So if they're on that CARE Act with the city, we can reference that, and then we can get them on that plan with us.
So there's something we could post on our website, right, Rebecca? So that our customers would know.
Yeah, so currently, in 2023, it was a 12.5% discount, which knocked off $3.28 off the bill. So it kind of would really offset anything increase that did for the senior community who applies for this program.
And so what they do is they would net that with whatever franchise fees they send us.
Oh, I see.
That's all I got for you guys.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Casey. Yeah.
Casey, thank you so much.
I have a question. I ask you, it's not a question, Casey, it's kind of an ask. I'm Italian. Is it possible, I know a few years ago, there was, I don't know, it was called a trash bash in coordination with the city where you guys came around and you know, folks who aren't able to get down to, or transport, you're able to get refrigerators and tires and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure, I know there's a cost to that, but is that something that you guys could entertain doing again? And
Yeah, I mean, we'd be willing to talk to you guys about putting on a program like that, you know.
But generally, isn't that done through the solid waste task force also?
Oh, is it the
I
solid
think
waste?
a lot of that is coordinated through them.
Okay.
And then they say like, it's a mattress day in this part of the county and a mattress day over there, and then it's electronics day and it's a hazardous waste day.
I was thinking that they came around to our neighborhoods.
Oh.
Yeah, I think when we first took over up here in the previous contract, before we signed this new one in 18, there was a program like that, the trash bash, and I mean, I remember I took part in it, and we did go around and, I mean, it was like a community cleanup, put out what you want kind of thing. You know, that'd be something we could entertain talking to the city about and seeing where we could get through. It was kind of all through us, it wasn't really through integrated waste management. But we do have, you know, there are some rates in this contract where if you want to put out something on the curb, it's pretty fairly priced. But also, you know, we could entertain maybe doing something with the city and the community, a community cleanup at some point in time.
That would be good. And I have another question about, you mentioned in the backup material about organic waste and how we had applied for,
Yeah.
and then that's going to go away. I just am trying to envision what is that going to look like, do you think?
I don't think it's going to go away.
No, I don't think it's going to go away.
At some point, it's
Yeah.
going to come into play.
I mean, come into play, yes.
In the city of Angels Camp and in the county.
Right.
You know, I think you guys have a rule exemption, and I think
It's going to expire.
it's going to expire in 27, I believe.
Yeah.
And you know, with that, there's a lot of stuff going on with the state where they're extending exemptions with good faith in programs starting, not full force programs like we have down in the valley where, you know, all your food waste goes every week and you know, some serious diversion requirements. But at some point, it'll go into effect up here. And you know, we're in the position with the city to get you guys in compliance when that happens and gear you guys up for it. It won't be something that'll happen overnight. We'll definitely help you, the city, the county, everybody, you know, get on board with that 1383 mandate.
Would it be another can then?
No. What we've done in other collection areas is we've utilized the same equipment that we have out in the field. We just add another service day. So your green waste cart would get serviced every week with your trash, and we would give direction to put your food waste in your trash.
And the
Green waste, sorry.
green waste,
Yeah,
and the green
my bad.
waste.
Yeah,
So the organics would go into green waste.
yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. And so you would use the same equipment you currently use to.
Yeah, just be an extra. So you'd actually get, you know, more service with that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Many asked all night.
I won't go first next time.
Okay, public comment. Do we have any public that would like to comment? Okay, yeah, what we'll have you do is come up to the podium and be sure and give us your name and.
My name's Mike Midbury. I live in Angels Camp. I was just going to say that there are incentives for people that are putting a lot of trash out, but is there an incentive for somebody that is reducing their trash to less than the 38-gallon barrel and all the others? And because I would expect that that's an obvious thing that would help. And that's the only thing I was thinking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that comment.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
are there other size receptacles, I think, or maybe a truck could pick it up?
No, I mean, the equipment that we have is the 35-gallon, the 65, and the 95. It's pretty universal throughout the state. So 35 is pretty much the smallest can that we offer. We used to have a 20-gallon cart in some areas, but they stopped making them. They're just, yeah. So the way our rates are structured, you can see by the rate sheet, is the smaller trash you have, the less expensive that service is. And that's really a directive given by the state through Cal Recycle and implementing a lot of the 1383 and AB 89 pricing and a lot of the mandates to kind of, the more you throw away, the more you bury, the more that goes in that gray cart, the more it should cost. It shouldn't be the other way around where the more you put in that gray cart, the less expensive it should be. So they're incentivized in that form, but 35 is the smallest cart that we have.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So what we'll do, because we do have quite an agenda and the time is of the essence, so we'll have you be sure and meet with Casey outside or what have you, or exchange names.
Sure, I just would ask why.
I know, but I'm sorry, time is of the essence. We have a long agenda tonight.
Are you keeping time?
Yes, so
Thank you guys.
thank you guys.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
appreciate you guys
And
very
great
much.
questions, and we really appreciate your insight. So thank you for the presentation, and we're going to move on to item C. This is another presentation that we have for our Joint Powers Authority 5-year funding agreement for Utica Water and Power Authority, and an update on the FERC exemption. Joel Metzger.
Am I on?
Yeah, you're up.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Joel Metzger. I'm the General Manager of the Utica Water and Power Authority. We're the JPA that the city is part of that provides the raw water supply to the city of Angels Camp and the Union Public Utility District. And let's see it. Is this my first slide?
I think so.
I think I have a PowerPoint. If
Yeah, let me get to that then.
Okay.
Right here, right? And I'm sorry, the program, I just noticed it cut quite a bit off. So.
Okay.
On the left
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
For links.
You can?
Do you have a copy?
Yeah, I have a
If
copy.
anybody wants a copy.
All right, so the purpose of the update tonight is to make sure that the council is in the loop on the financial analysis that Utica conducted over the past few months in coordination with the city staff and UPUD staff. And what we were doing with the financial analysis is we were looking at costs over the next 5 years. We worked with a qualified rate consultant to make sure that those costs were in line with what would be needed for a rate study in the Proposition 218 proceeding. And we modeled out the projected costs over the next 5 years. And the purpose of this study was to make sure we had really good data and information for the city council and for Union Public Utility District, because both of those entities are going into a rate study, which will likely lead to a Proposition 218 and some adjustment to rates. I'm not sure exactly what that will look like. So we performed this study, and one of the things that I think is important to keep in mind is Utica was formed in 1995. For the first 18 years of our existence, we provided water to the city and UPUD, but we haven't received contributions except for about the last 10 years. So for the first 18 years, there were no contributions. Water was provided at no cost. But you can see over the last 10 years, the contributions have gone up and down, and that really ranged on due to water year and how much hydro revenue we could produce. And then in more recent years, reserve contributions and capital improvement projects have really driven those costs. And so we have met every year and determined how short Utica is on its budget, what projects need to go forward, what reserve contributions, and then an agreement has been reached on the contribution that's being asked for. And then the city and UPUD split that contribution 50-50. Next slide. So when we first ran the numbers with HDR, the consulting firm, they really showed some numbers that were very difficult for us to really think about actually asking for. So if you look at the agency contributions for 24-25, we see 1.3 million, that would be split 50-50. So one of the scenarios was a $650,000 contribution from each agency. And then in that particular scenario, it went up by 4%. And by the end of the 5th year, that was up to 1.5 million. And that's well above the contributions that we have been receiving, which have ranged from 40,000 in the beginning all the way up to about 500,000 is the most we've ever received from each entity. And then so if you look down to scenario 2, that started at $1 million, so that's 500,000 each, and then that went up by a higher percentage, ending at 1.3 million. And so when we ran the first 4 scenarios, all of them were starting at numbers that really weren't possible politically, and the burden would be too high on ratepayers. And so what we did is we kind of went back to the drawing board and we looked at what cuts we would need to make this a more reasonable approach. But that does come with some very difficult cuts for Utica, because these scenarios were based on continuing the board adopted reserve contributions, continuing the plan for CIP, and doing a lot of the projects that we are committed to. So let's come down to the next slide.
Yeah.
All right. So what we were asked is to really start year one, not at 500,000, not at 650,000 apiece, but at 370,000. And the reason is that one of the partners, UPUD, they are only charging $18 per customer per month, and they have 1,700 customers, and so they can generate 370,000. They just can't generate more than that right now, unless they go through a 218 process. And so we really need to start there. The only way we could get above that contribution would be if they dipped into their reserves. And because of some lawsuits going on and some other uncertainties, the board really isn't comfortable dipping into those reserves right now. So we're starting the next scenario at 370, and then we're looking at a 10% increase each year. So let's go down to the next slide. And so this is what the most recent and latest scenario is that we've talked about the Utica board. We've also gone up to UPUD and we've presented this information, the same information tonight, to the UPUD board. So you can see we would start with member payments at $740,000, which is that $370 apiece. And then with the 10% increase, you see that go up to $814, $895, and eventually to a little over $1 million by the end of the 5th year. But when you do start at that lower contribution amount, you see that there's a remaining budget shortfall in red in the middle there. So we have already balanced the budget this year. This is showing the cuts that we've already made and some carryover that's going to help us out this year. And so you can see we cut our CIP heavily, and we also reduced the reserve contribution. So 435 of planned CIP was cut out, deferred, and then the reserve contributions were cut by 100,000, and we ended up balancing that budget, and that budget was adopted last week. So we have a balanced budget for FY 24-25. So as we move forward through the years, you can see that the shortfall that we're facing is 657, again, that red line in the middle, 588, 442, and so on. So each and every year, based on this model, we are looking at having to make substantial cuts. And I would say that one of the big levers would be revenue, and our main revenue source is hydropower. And we have 6 different levels of water years. Water year 1 means we're going to make maximum hydropower. Water year 6 would be a horrific drought, and we would make very little. It ranges from 600,000 to near 2 million in hydropower. So we are taking a conservative approach with what we're modeling, and we're using basically an average water year, 2.5, and so we're not going for that water year 1 max revenue, we're not going down to the drought year. And what this does is it gives us kind of an average contribution, and in good years, Utica is committed to putting reserves away, and in bad years, we're going to make it work with what we have. We're not going to come back and ask for more. Once this 5-year agreement is set in place, we have to make it work, and the only time we'd be coming back to the city or UPUD would be if we had like a prolonged 5-year drought, a bunch of water year 6s, we spend our reserves, we cut everything we can, and we still can't make it. But that would be a pretty drastic situation. So this model is showing hundreds of thousands of cuts, but we believe that we can do that, we can seek grants, and we can make it work, even though this is going to be real painful. Now, there's another scenario, which would be if the FERC exemption is approved. And so let's go to the next slide. So in orange, you can see the last 2 years. We expect that we'll know about 3 years from now if the FERC exemption is approved. And for those who don't know what that is, it would be reducing the federal regulation and cost of operating hydropower powerhouses, and it would reduce our costs substantially. And so when you look forward, if the FERC exemption were to be granted, instead of the $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 deficits that we have been facing, that we have to cut our CIP and our reserve contributions to balance, you can see that in fiscal year 27-28, we are looking at a little bit of a projected surplus. And then in 28-29, we have a $40,000 shortfall, and that's a very easy thing to balance. That's not a big deal. 500,000 is real tough, 40,000 is real doable. And so, one of the things I would also point out in the green, you can see we have a balance reserve transfer. And in the middle there, you can see 505,000. every scenario, both the one on the last page and this page, spends those reserves down 100% just to make it work. And so we're left with 0 reserves for balancing the budget. Now, if we got a good water year and we got some more grants, that picture might change. But if we don't get those things, we're going to be looking at spending our reserves down at these funding levels. So there's another question I just wanted to address about what's really changing if the FERC exemption does happen and doesn't happen. And so I think the main things we're looking at is if the FERC exemption is granted, we do not have to go through a costly relicensing process with the federal government every 30 years. We have projected in a study that that could cost us up to $10 million. The exemption has cost us about $350,000 so far, and in this presentation that you'll see in a minute, we're seeing up to another $2.5 million or so that could be spent, worst case scenario, but it could be much less than that if things go more smoothly. In a relicensing, if we have more people who are asking us for more studies and additional recreation and different flow regimes that reduce our hydropower, those are the things that then could cost even more. And so we do have the possibility, if the exemption fails, that we may have to make the decision, are we going to relicense these powerhouses, or are we going to consider decommissioning them, maybe 1, maybe 2, so on and so forth. So the failure of the exemption would create a substantial financial hardship that goes into the long run, because every 30 years we still have to relicense if we want to operate these powerhouses. And FERC comes with more than just the relicensing. We have to do weekly, monthly, yearly, every 5 year, every 10-year reports, and it's a lot of staff time. There's tons of engineering and consulting costs, and there's a handout that just shows the next 5 years of projected FERC-related costs, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So not only do we save on the exemption, we also save on the day-to-day, year-to-year costs. So it would be a huge thing. But bottom line is, next slide, even with the exemption, we still do need contributions from our JPA partners in order to balance our budget. Our budget's around $3+ million a year, and our hydro's revenue is generally around $2 million. So we're looking at about $1 million that we're going to be short just to operate the system. So with that given time, I want to make sure we have some time for questions on this.
Right. Go ahead. I think you need to talk.
I'll hit that
Go
one.
back to the contribution.
one?
The last. So the
This one?
5-year contribution is the 370 on it.
So the way that
Okay,
it's right now is it would start at 370 in this coming year, and then it would slowly escalate to over 500,000 by the end of the 5th year. Some other considerations and levers that can be pulled for what the impact to the ratepayer would be are both the city and UPUD have some reserve balances, and I can let Rebecca talk about the city's reserve balance and make sure you're up to speed on that. Reserve balances can be held for emergencies if we get in real trouble. They could also be used to smooth rate increases. So, if you have enough money, instead of raising it by a couple bucks a month, you could just use those reserves and you could make that less of an impact on the customer. The city's in a better financial position than UPUD in terms of reserves, and the current collection from the city, and I'll let Rebecca speak to this, is more than UPUD. I'm not sure exactly what is expected to come in this year, but I believe it's a little north of 400,000, but I can let Rebecca speak to that as well.
Okay. And then Joel, did you want to, we do have a few minutes left, and then I am
3
going to
minutes.
have, if there's any major questions that we have, I'm looking at you, Mike, so any major questions that have to be asked right now or should be asked publicly, I'm going to embrace those. But if there's any long conversation, of course, we need to reach out to Joel between now and then we also have a meeting on the 13th. We'll go over this and take a deeper dive into this at the JPA meeting. So for public purposes, Joel, if you can touch on where we're at with the FERC exemption briefly and the next steps of the decisions that we've made to get there and the end goal by the end of the year, hopefully.
You bet. So the FERC exemption, this is a little chart on where we are. The star is kind of where we are. We're a little actually kind of on the green to the left of the star. So we spent about 2 years working on putting draft applications together. We submitted those and circulated those in December of 2023, so just 6 months ago or so. We did a 3-month public comment and period. We held a joint meeting and did a tour, and we now have received about 30 comments. 95% have been in support of our exemption, and so we're really pleased with that. But we did have some Fish and Wildlife, some state water boards, some Forest Service comments, and they're asking for studies. So let's go to the next slide. So the studies that have been requested, there are 10 of them. And so what we've done is have already done the foothill yellow-legged frog study. That's a species that is being listed and is a great concern to the state. We're also looking at red-legged frogs, western pond turtles. Coming up is going to be a proposal to do a fish study, what's living in the streams that we manage, water quality, and other studies of actually the stream bed itself. And then we're also looking at potential wildlife entrapment in our flumes and canals. And we need to update our historic properties management plan, which is the cultural and historic management of our system, which by the way is 100% historic, so it's protected. So even if I wanted to replace a wooden flume with a metal one or a concrete one, I couldn't, because we need to preserve the history under the current regulations of our system. So these are the studies that we've been asked to do. We have approved yellow-legged frog. Our board has approved the SHPO, the beginning of the SHPO, and we are going to see a proposal for the middle 4, 5, 6, and 7 in the next month. Next slide. Other things that we need to work on to get ourselves from a draft application to a final, which is targeted for the first quarter of 2025, is a Forest Service special use permit, a state water board water quality certification. CEQA needs to get started. SHPO, as I spoke to, we need to get that done and consult with SHPO. And then we need to potentially do a biological assessment depending on the results of the studies. Next slide. And so our cost estimates range, you can see 2024, 2025, 2026, but all in, the range that they're giving is upper end of, low end of 850 to get us to the finish line, upper end of near, I can't read that, 2.285 million. And again, we're about 350 in. So things could change. This is all preliminary. As we find more information, we need to do more studies. We could also have a smoother run. So this is really our best estimate at the time. We have a $1.1 million reserve in the bank for this, and we're continuing to contribute to that reserve to try to get us to fund this all the way through. And that's why those reserves are so important, is to help get this effort through to the finish line. Next slide.
Joel, what is your anticipation if we, for whatever reason, change courses and decide to not pursue the exemption and we have to go to a recertification of our hydro operations? How many of these studies can be potentially reused for that purpose?
So the latest estimate from our consulting team is 90% up to even 95% of what we're doing for the exemption will be usable for a relicensing process.
Okay.
So this is not a sunk cost, but before we get to from an exemption decision to a relicensing, our JPA, we need to sit down and have a very serious discussion about, do we want to relicense and do a cost-benefit analysis and make sure that we've come back around and talked to everyone and looked at those pros and cons and long-term estimates of hydro revenue. And relicensing, you're back in that 30-year cycle. So if it's up to 10 million this time and we get lucky and it's less, what's it going to be in 30 years, 60 years, 90 years? That's a lot of funds that we are committing our future managers to. And so we really need to have a serious conversation. And that's why I'm so passionate about this exemption, because it's one of those few times when it's a win-win. We can continue to be excellent stewards of the environment, even better than we have history, work with tribes, work with our communities, and we can save our community millions and millions of dollars. So there isn't really a loser here. It's just a matter of getting through the process, and this is a bureaucratic nightmare. And so we have just been slogging through, and we're doing well. We have good relationships with the right people. DC supports us. The staff supports this. They believe that this is what Congress has intended for the exemption. And I believe that we're going to be successful, but there are no guarantees until we get that approval from the commission in Washington, DC.
Okay, real quick, I'm going to see if public has any, this is a lot of information, but this is very exciting times for us. And if you have any questions or comments about what's been covered in this presentation, now would be your opportunity real quick.
Keep up the good work.
We still have nobody online with us, huh, Ruth?
Correct.
Okay, council, between now and our next meeting on this would be a good time for you to give Joel any kind of direction or questions that he might need. Alvin, if you have something you want to chime in on.
No, I just think the presentation is great. All I know is that from the beginning, Dave Andrews, even Steve, and now you, we're on our third general manager who is saying that we need to spend money and get our facilities up to snuff. And at some point, we're just gonna have to do. So, and right now we have a lot of talent to do that with Frank and Kyle and Sebastian and Jeremiah and everybody else that saves us a lot of money rather than contracting it out. So I have a whole lot more to say, but that's my thing.
Yeah. I want to say thank you. I know that this is a very trying time. It's an exciting time for us. Thank you for all that you're doing, and then, of course, working with staff. If there's anything that staff can do to make this kind of come together, I know we're just right at the cusp of making things happen. So I'd like to say thank you. Go, Mike, you got something?
I do. So Rebecca, we're in the middle of doing another rate study and this, I'm assuming the one that shows without the FERC exemption moving forward and increasing by 10%. If we get the FERC exemption, is there a way to mitigate that increase to our citizens? Or, you know, I guess that would be something that council and Utica would talk about. So, because it will free dollars up from their end, which will then, can you do something else with those dollars? Or when you do a 218 and you commit to saying this is part of your bill is going to be Utica, does it always have to be Utica, or can it just go to the enterprise fund?
It's all Utica.
It would always have to continue doing that.
That would be the portion for Utica. Now, the Utica board and city council and the union board could all decide, well, we don't need to put that much in CIP. Miraculously, we got a grant, so we don't really have that much that needs to happen. You can always lower your rates, you just can't increase them. So there could be a time in the future where there's less operating expenditures or less capital expenditures or less whatever, and at that point you wouldn't need that 370 times 10% for however many years. You would need less than that, and then you would just lower that portion of the rate.
Which time are we?
Or on the flip side, Mike, you can take that money you're collecting and get those projects done quicker.
No, you could.
And
You
move
could.
forward faster.
I just,
rather than decrease that money and stretch those projects
Right.
out farther as
Right.
things are still
Right.
moving forward.
Rebecca, could you just speak to how much the city is collecting and then what's in the reserve, just so we have that?
Yeah, a little bit of.
Yeah, so
Calm.
the rate study shows that, and it's showed this all along, that we would collect a lot more than we actually collect. So this year, I think in the rate study, it shows something like
350 or 455.
445 something?
Michelle said 405.
That's right, but that's all we're collecting.
Right.
So even though the rate study shows that at a water year 3 rate, which is what we charge, we would collect 450 something thousand, we're not collecting 450,000. We're gonna, best estimate is get to just under 406,000. So each year, we've never actually collected what was in the rate study. So on the years that Utica didn't ask for an amount equal to what was in the rate schedule, we added money to the reserve. And in the years that he asked for what was in the rate schedule or more, we took money out of the reserve in order to shore that up. So we would, you know, for like the 490 that was asked, we upped the rate a little bit so we could collect 440, and then the 50,000 came out of the reserve. So the ending reserve will be just under 460. So we would recommend using that in the rate schedule to smooth out the increases that would go over the 5 years.
So we would recommend at this point then holding on to that for when we do have shortfalls. We would recommend smoothing that out to the rate base.
We would smooth it out to the rate base because in year 5, what's that going to be? 370 times 40%.
It's 445, 940.
Right.
Yeah. So we would just use, you're saying use the reserves to help smooth out the out years.
And then the other thing is, and we've talked about this, like, well, what happens if there's 2 years of drought? So the idea was we could either put a, like a drought fee in the cases where there was years where we couldn't collect enough from the ratepayers or use the reserves.
Okay. Okay? Thank you, Joel.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
I just want to thank Rebecca for all the time she spent on this. It's been a lot of meetings at the staff level, so Rebecca, thank you for all the good ideas and your time. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move on to our Utica Park and Liger Mine expansion project update. Amy Augustine.
Mayor and council members, you probably noticed Mark Twain took a move on last Friday to the museum where he is being restored. At 10 a.m. this morning, we met with the property owners who live closest to the park to talk to them about things like hours of operation, fencing, access, dust, and they got to meet the people that if they have a problem, they will be able to go to directly throughout the project. 11 a.m. we had our groundbreaking. I was glad to see that all the members of the Park Planning Committee who regularly attended were there. Everybody who had monuments, associations with monuments in the park were also there, as well as most of the landowners and the Angels Camp Community Club, which was great. They will start clearing and grubbing tomorrow, and Chris may want to say a word or two, I don't know. Napa building is going to start coming down towards the end of the week, if not earlier. They were out there testing for asbestos while we were putting shovels in the ground in case nobody noticed. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
I appreciated your organization. I thought our groundbreaking ceremony was fantastic. Thank you, Rebecca and Rose and Michelle. How many fingers that we're going to go?
No, just these two.
Okay.
Public Works.
And I also noticed that Veronica and Amanda were there, and I'd like to thank the previous city councils for helping to get this project started and moving forward. And I really believe that at the end we're all going to be proud of what we have.
Go ahead, Alvin.
Nothing, I'll just echo what Mike said, and actually to the T on that one, and just thank everybody for putting a lot of time and effort in this. And this is, I don't know, it's very interesting and amazing that we're going to put our stamp on this community for a couple, generations. So that's pretty exciting. So thank you to everybody.
Yeah, exciting times. It was very exciting as well. I had the opportunity to talk to the project manager from the construction team for quite a while, and there was a lot of questions that he was answering that were putting the visual together for me that I really appreciated. And excited that it's finally happening. And it sounds like with this meeting that you had this morning, you were able to communicate, so all the property owners, the homeowners right there are aware of the impacts that they're going to be living through a construction zone here in the next few weeks. But sounds like any issues have been mitigated, any fencing and access points. So I'm very thankful for that, and thank you for that type of outreach. That concept is better this time around. So anybody else have anything to say on this? Perfect. All right, thank you so much, Amy. We're going to move forward. Do we need to take a break for any reason, or should we move right into the animal? Okay, so this is discussion. Huh?
Keep going.
Rose. Well, we're going to have to take a bathroom break in just a minute, but we'll move on to E. This is discussion and direction on the animal keeping. Amy?
Mayor, council members, I'm going to keep it simple. We basically took the ordinance, simplified it, made it for 12 chickens in every zoning district except for R2 and R3. Those are your multifamily. We've got apartments. If you want those in there, we can. Most jurisdictions don't go there. 10-foot setbacks, no roosters, and no permitting. We tied it to section 1.17, which is our nuisance ordinance, which we didn't have at the time this was written. So we're now able to reference that instead and simplify the process. With your direction, we will take this to Planning Commission and get this codified and back to you as soon as possible. Any questions?
Mike?
Yeah, so this will become a permitted use, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. And I haven't given much thought to folks, typically you could have a shared garden, right, with an apartment building?
You could.
Maybe that's something the commission, I mean, the planning commission could kind of look at. I mean,
We
if
can
there
talk
was
about having a common area.
a common area. I mean,
In those zonings.
In R2 and R3.
Maybe take it like case by case too.
Yeah, just take it.
Yeah, what would they do? They would have to file a permit, they would have to file a.
Maybe that would be.
Well, again,
conditional or
we
something.
want to stay away from doing
I know.
the permits if at all possible,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I suspect that if we specified it to be in a common area, that we can discuss that with the planning commission, but
But thank you for your work on this.
Yeah, this feels more like us. This feels more like it should be this time around, so thank you for that. We have any public that would like to comment on this new proposed amendment? So seeing none, I think the direction then is to go ahead and take this to the planning department, planning commission, and fine tune it in any way that it needs to be fine tuned and bring it on back. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome, perfect, thank you.
Do you want to take a break then?
Let's take a quick break, just 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and pick up with item F. Okay, thank you, and we're coming back with item F. This is to adopt resolution 2446, authorizing the purchase of APN 062003041, expanding Tryon Park to Angels Creek, and authorizing the city administrator to sign, authorize, and have recorded all relevant documents and agreements. Amy.
Mayor and council members, as you'll remember, we discussed this in closed session, discussed it with the property owner. She has accepted your offer, and we would like to proceed with taking this into escrow and purchasing this property, which for anybody not familiar with it, is right outside, if you walked out your door over at UWPA, it's sort of like right there. So we need to have a public presentation of it before we can go forward, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We do not own the portion around the small section. That's,
We don't, but we have an offer that has been accepted on it and is awaiting escrow.
thank you. That's what I was trying to understand, if you do or don't own that.
Yes, we are pending.
Thank you. All right, another part. Let's do it. Any questions, comments? Any members of the public have anything to say? No?
Bravo.
Yeah. Okay, bringing it back. Looks like Mike or Alvin, you guys have questions or just ready to go?
Ready to go.
Locked and loaded with a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2446.
Thank you. We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second.
Shemente.
Aye.
Rolio.
Aye.
Moncada. Aye. Herndon.
Aye.
Sharada. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. How much time did we save on that? Like 8 minutes?
Don't jinx
We
us
are-
yet.
Okay,
Roll.
approve resolution
Yeah.
number 24-47. This is a change order for the City Hall building modifications. Michelle.
So, construction is underway at City Hall, and if you haven't come by, you can come by and see our new server room. Today we had the wiring contractors out there. So they finished phase 1 where they gave us a break room, moved the kitchen, and have put in the server room. So now we're moving to the front phase. The wiring needs to get done. All of the servers will move to the server cage that was delivered, so it'll be secured and won't be in compliance and not have to pay any fines anymore. But one of the questions that arose was in the original contract for $50,000, they had recommended originally that they could patch the floor. So if you've come to City Hall and you've walked the perimeter, like the circle, you'll find that there are pieces of flooring that are popping up and people trip on them. So we originally asked them to find good pieces and try to patch it. They made a recommendation to replace it with the new flooring, and you can see quite a difference. The new flooring is a ½ an inch thick. It's resistant to water and just better quality. And so what they're proposing is not to replace the offices, still go through and patch the offices that have areas where chairs have rolled and cracked the existing flooring, but to replace that circle that gets traffic quite a bit and then patch the offices for us, which would then extend the life of the flooring there. So that was one option. If we could do just certain sections, we could just do the front section. We could, pick and choose, but if we did it all together, it would be $5,500 and they would give us a discount of $385. So that's one of the items we're bringing you tonight. And the other piece was with the front desk. We had the granite slab delivered because we're going to put a smaller or a larger area so that when Amy or any of the building department meet with individuals,
Sure.
they can roll out their plans.
Sure.
And we'll take customer payments there. So they were going to cut up that existing desk and try to shore it up. After looking more at it, that's not really their recommendation. They would say to throw out that piece and rebuild something there to put the slab on to support it. And so that's a price. We have a range there between, I think it's 2,000.
2,200
Yeah.
and 3,500.
Yeah. So in total, you're taking the larger of the two quotes, it would be an additional 9,000 that we're asking for the change order to make these changes to City Hall.
Okay, questions or comments?
I just believe you guys have started the project, and I, having walked on those floors, I think it would be good to have some consistency, for wear and tear, et cetera. So, and I appreciate you bringing it forward to us, and I think we need to move forward and create a workable living space for you folks where you spend a majority of your time.
Thank you.
I don't know how to say this other than the way my dad used to say it. Something about putting lipstick on a pig. And I had a hard time with the $50,000 that we were already spending on the mobile home, the modular home. And we've moved forward with that, and I did vote in that direction. But now I see another 9, and I see words about granite, and I don't think it necessarily needs to be granite. Granite's heavy, granite is high-end, maybe a Formica that's lighter, maybe a different product, different material. So I have a problem spending another $9,000 on our pig.
So I can answer that. The granite was in the original quote, and I did ask him if we could swap some of these new things out and replace the granite with something else. And he said the way the granite is sold, it's actually more cost effective for them when they're buying the different slabs versus the Formica has to have a certain cut to it where the granite is already preformed. And so he said, you're not saving that much. Because I tried
It sounds like you have to rebuild a $2,500 island to support the weight of the granite, and maybe there's no savings there. I'm just thinking that it's gotten a little bit bigger than my initial thoughts. Although I think it's the flooring issue is much needed. We've all kind of seen the flooring situation in there. My plan wasn't to put this much money into a very temporary building.
Yeah, but I think that's the issue. Is it really going to be temporary? One of the things I'm going to ask the council to look at is how do we master plan for the city? Where should our fire department be? Where should City Hall be? And I really think that, investing the money in this building, I don't believe this building would be abandoned. I believe it would be repurposed. So, yeah.
And we could still go forward with the granite on the existing desk. It's just, it's going to have to be cut up, and it's with the top. They just said it's not going to be very clean with the pressed wood that the current desk is. So.
And I think Mike just spoke to what I was saying. I do agree that we need to do a space evaluation on where we're going and what we're doing and everything. We have another city hall that's sitting and not going anywhere, and $9,000 is $9,000. So I'll stop talking now. And Alvin, looks like you have your light on. I'll have you talk now.
Oh, I'm just, it is $9,000 more, but I think everybody's going to be there for a few more years. Nobody is moving out of that location, especially
tomorrow. Yeah.
Tomorrow. There needs to be funding, there needs to be design, there needs to be all sorts of stuff that's going to take years. So you guys will be there, and I think the $9,000 is probably warranted on this one. And at least the flooring, I agree 100%, is, you guys didn't like my duct tape idea. So, so the flooring, and if it makes it a little easier up front for another $2,500 or whatever, then we go with it. But you guys are going to be there for a few more years for sure. So I'm for the $9,000.
I have more of an out of curiosity question. I am very unfamiliar with modulars and how much they cost, but I am curious, what does a brand new one cost? Does anyone, just in terms of the compare?
I actually have a lot of background in modular buildings. Because of the Sierra Waldorf School, that's pretty much all we had there, and so I did a lot of fundraising for them and installing them and purchasing them. And so to get a brand new one and have it installed, you're looking at over $200,000 easily. That doesn't include any outfitting of the modular itself. Like, you still have to bring in plumbing, you still have to do flooring, you still have to do carpeting, and all of that. And so we've gotten used ones before, and we were in that situation where we were replacing roofs and we were doing windows and like constantly fighting mold from leaks coming in. And so you are better off purchasing a new one, in my opinion, than chasing down a used one and trying to make it fit. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on that one.
Thank you. I was just curious in terms of the cost of repairing something versus new, but that answers that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wait, do we have any public comment on this? Seeing none? Coming back to council. Consideration of the resolution.
I'll vote for it.
You rolling up?
You go.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2447.
We have a motion. I'm just waiting to say aye.
Oh, you want me to say it? Second.
Your light just stays on. We don't Your light's on.
It takes me a while, and I can push it.
Shemente,
Aye.
Brolio,
Aye.
Moncada, Hernan,
Aye, but this is it.
Sharada.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 12 is administration report. Rebecca.
Just so everyone knows, I told Michelle the same thing. This is it.
Okay. Sorry about the big comment, Michelle. I didn't.
That's all right. The girls are happy, so we're getting there. That's good.
So I went, Utica invited Butler's office to discuss funding, work exemption, funding for projects. So she had her staff come up, Denise, and so I went on a tour with her as well as Union Public Utility District and Utica staff and did that. The downtown parking demo is possibly going to start as early as this weekend.
There's going to be all kinds of stuff going on.
I know. The one thing just to be aware of, just an FYI, because we are going to have to bring this conversation to council at a future discussion, is the surrounding neighbors have just kind of moved in to parking in the parking area. And so we'll have to address that.
You're talking about the park.
The parking next to pickleball court.
And the cars have done what?
They've just kind of moved in. So those
homeowners are parking in the public.
Homeowners are parking in the public parking area.
Right, but they're not going to be able to do that anymore.
They're arguing that they should, so it will just be a conversation that we'll have to bring to council because they've gotten used to it for so many years.
Can a car park in a public parking lot, like Taco Bell parking lot? That's not public, that's private, isn't it?
Well, and it wasn't public, so we're weeding through potential little side letter agreements that Wellens First or prior city staff may have engaged in with various property owners that are working their way through the mud. But we will bring that conversation in the near future. We're just starting to get letters. 2 came in today, and so we'll have to just bring that forward. Napa, as discussed earlier, should be starting demo this week.
As I mentioned earlier, and I just can't remember the name that we gave it, we are looking at a potential water disruption fee in the rate study. So if there was a multi-year drought, that would be an issue. And so the reason we would use that reserve is on year 5, our contribution JPA would be over 541,000, and right now we're only collecting 400,000. So we would use that to spread that reserve so that customers are not necessarily feeling that pinch, but potentially we could use it to cover that water disruption fee if there was a drought. Signal Service has given us the green light for using the top of their building for downtown Wi-Fi, and Cal.net has agreed to work with us on that. So we're working through that. I got information that MACT is scheduled to do their final at the end of October. And then MACT has reached out to us that they would like to do a friend-raising event Saturday, September 14th from 2 to 6. And they would like permission to use our back parking area like we did for the groundbreaking. So I don't necessarily see any issues with that. I was gonna talk to Scott. It seemed like it was fine the last time, not much disruption. Mark Twain is officially at the museum. Brad Sutton helped move him along as well as public works staff. So it was very interesting to say the least. We got some good pictures. And then don't forget Farmers Market starts June 7th, this Friday. Sorry, right now?
Just tomorrow we're gonna be on and off maybe.
Oh, tomorrow, because of the rewiring at City Hall, our internet's gonna be off and on, so.
Definitely Thursday morning though too, for
Yeah,
sure.
and Thursday morning. So I'm gonna work from home because I'll have stable internet. And then staff are probably going to route.
Filing, we have other
Yeah.
stuff to do, so.
We
gotta
route
clean up
phones
the
and then,
front.
yeah, do housekeeping stuff.
Yeah.
But we may have phone intermittent issues.
Phone and internet.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to council report. Carolyn.
Attended the UWPA meeting, and you have your notes on that?
I don't know, let me see.
We approved the budget. It was a balanced budget. That was probably the biggest thing we did. And we also, you always have your notes.
I know, hold on, I'll find it. I got buried.
That was the biggest thing.
That was the biggest thing. Budget. We did go over the FERC recommendation and then the studies on a much bigger level. We did a performance evaluation on our general manager. And that's it.
That's it, yeah. And we also are having a JPA joint meeting with Union, with City of Angels on next Thursday.
Right.
At 5:30 here. So if you-
Right here. If you guys want to hear more about that water talk with a whole lot more people. Yes.
It's good stuff.
Yep, very important stuff. That's all I have as well. In the last 2 weeks, it's been that. It was a Memorial Day holiday, it was a graduation, and a grad night. So that's where I've been. Isabel.
I don't have anything to report. Let's see, same as everyone, went to the groundbreaking this morning and have the call tomorrow, as well as the meetings that we have going on this week.
I am trying to get an update on the one project that we have going on for COG, which is the roadside safety signs. So engineering has reached out to Unico, and we're just waiting on a response. Last I got is that the signs were ordered, but it's a supply issue.
Thank you.
Alvin.
I'm good.
Covered it all.
Everything's been covered?
Yeah.
Nice.
I do
Okay,
want to say
so.
too, really quickly, that the benches look great downtown.
Oh, and that, I did have a question. Are the old benches having to kind of be removed at the private individual benches? Those were supposed to
Yeah,
go?
yes.
It's
So
a slow
that's
process.
the next staff is to try to get them to actually remove them. And then we did have a couple more benches that we're trying to put in some bulk areas downtown. And yeah. So.
Yeah, they look really good. Okay, item 14 is calendar. We have June and July up there.
So COG is tomorrow. The special meeting for you guys on the 10th regarding budget. All hazards on the 11th. It's JPA here at 5:30, exciting. Then we go into the council meeting on the 18th. The 19th is COG and TAC. However, the city hall is closed. We have a holiday. Also the IRWMA meeting, and then the...
she canceled that.
Did she? Okay. And then the FERC UWPA at 2 o'clock on the 19th.
One question on the 10th. So special council meeting for budget, but we were going to try, and I just don't know if timing will work with the rate consultant. We were going to try to also tack on like a draft discussion for rates. Yes or no?
How long is the
What's
budget?
the timeline? Yeah.
10 o'clock,
Yeah.
9:48.
Oh, so it's at 4, right?
4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I would come in.
So we could certainly always wait to do that. We're not going to have a rates schedule in place for July 1, and I
Right.
didn't intend to anyway, so.
Can you agendize it, and then if we just run out of time, we just run
We
out of
just
time?
continue it,
Well, but
maybe?
that brings that
continue it?
person up to get the, right, the
Oh.
consultant would be
The
here.
consultant would be.
Oh,
Right.
sheesh.
So maybe we wait till I get back and do it in July.
We can look at July's calendar. I have July on here too.
Let's look at July.
You have your council meeting, the holiday,
Mm-hmm.
all hazards, LAFCO, the next council meeting, and then the CPPA.
So it would be the 16th. we would-
Yeah, so
It
I don't
would
know
be
if
a
you want
long
to do
16th.
another special meeting for it, like maybe.
No, thank you.
No.
No, thank you.
I will not be here on the 16th.
Okay.
Okay.
I
And
don't
you
care. Fit it
return
in
when?
somewhere.
Rebecca?
On the 5th. So she'll be
July
will you be
5th?
back to work on the 8th or the 5th?
The
eighth.
fly in on.
Okay.
Fit it in wherever, I'll make it work.
Yeah, figure it out.
What's that?
They don't want another special meeting.
That's wherever,
So
I
then
don't, special
we either-
meeting, council meeting,
When do you have
wherever.
to have this by? When do you
Well,
need
it
it?
should have
Is there
taken
like
effect
a?
on
Can we
July.
add it
It
to
should
the
take,
second
yeah,
or
it should.
something?
July 1st, that was already great.
We could do it, but we do it on the 16th. We're not gonna have it, we knew we weren't gonna have it done
Okay.
by the July 1. And so what happens is you keep your existing rate schedule, that's it. And we raise enough to pay, that that's not a problem, I'm not concerned about that. And I wanna make sure that we have sufficient outreach and sufficient conversations to make sure everybody is on board with what is included in that rate schedule. So I don't wanna rush it anyway, so maybe we just do it on the 16th and try to keep that meeting light. Other than that.
Okay.
Okay, Michelle, you good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I will not be here for the 18th meeting. Michelle will be handling that meeting.
And Rebecca, when is it that you leave?
She leaves the 19th.
Okay. All right.
Juneteenth.
On that day, okay. Future agenda items.
So, may I start?
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we need to do this all in one meeting, but I would like to start a conversation regarding a master plan for city and facilities and just start talking about it. I don't mean mapping things out, but maybe just have some kind of philosophical discussion about where the firehouse could go, and there's Measure A, and what are we gonna do with the building downtown, and what could we do with this building, just to see if you know, we all can kind of get on the same page about, you know, where we're gonna go in the future. But I don't know if it's gonna be cut and dry and in the sand. And the
So
second,
on that, my recommendation would be to embody that in the budget conversation that's gonna happen on the 10th, because we really do need to do an updated
Facility.
facility plan. The one that we have is from 2014, 2015.
Okay. that's putting numbers with it, but he's asking for like a
Yeah, do we feel?
overview, right?
Yeah, how do we, or, does the council think that the police and fire can live together and play nice, and we put another building or extend a building out there? We have Measure A funds. And would this be a great city hall? I mean, it's.
Rebecca, wasn't that something that we kind of had talked about and you were gonna maybe circle around?
We kind of
with
talked about it, but
asking?
I mean, I'm not an expert in terms of calculating what the future,
Right,
space
right.
needs are gonna be for any respective department. And so that's where I would look for just going ahead and putting that plan together in order to have the actual space needs, because they may say, based on growth, you can't cohabitate, or based on this, you shouldn't do that.
I mean, I would assume that all the players would be a part of that discussion.
They
too.
have to be, yeah.
And then I have one other question regarding the rate study. When we first went into it, and there was a question from a citizen regarding rates, it came to my attention that the 2 restaurants in the shopping center are charged more. Is the rate study looking at those charges?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, nice. And we're gonna talk about that on the 10th, or more of it.
No,
on the
16th.
16.
That other date. Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, we're having them look at it both ways,
Okay.
but having that applied to potentially more business types. If it was going to stay volumetric, then it would have a wider application.
Right. I just would like us to be consistent.
Any other future agenda items that we would like to, do you have any, Rebecca, that you'd like to go over?
No, it's really the rate study. We've got the budget on the 10th. And then there's various plans that we need to contemplate, but I was gonna discuss those as part of the list of budget. They are needs, but you guys gotta decide if you want to do them and when you want to do them. So one was gonna be kind of that master space plan, and then we've got some other plans that we need to contemplate in the next couple of years. And then, yeah, I am working with COG on looking at the updating the Angels Camp downtown Main Street plan. So we're kind of trying to contemplate those different plans, but those will all kind of be happening as they happen.
So,
Okay.
can you address the proclamation?
So we're gonna go back on, we had item 7, which was a proclamation that we continued to the end of this meeting, and we are now going to officially continue that to a future meeting. So that will conclude our open meeting today, and we are going to go back into closed session for a little while, and we thank everybody for attending. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.